Okay, thank you. It's nice to be back in Iceland. I have some dual interest here, and I like the Icelandic horse as well. And then also involved in fisheries. I cover most of Iceland. I've been working with the Board of Fishery for many years, but 2 years ago I moved over to the other side, so to say, and am now working with a newly established producer organization for cod fisheries in the Baltic. And well, let's see. And the Baltic fisheries, at least in a Swedish context, has been rather a very special area. It's quite considerable part of our total quota, and it is still. I mean, if you go back some 10, 15 years, it has been a very, very politicized management area. In the election 2002, the Green Party, they wanted to stop the whole fisheries because it was considered to be completely overfished. It was some severe problem with the fisheries and the cod situation, but it was mainly due to an unregulated fisheries, unfortunately, by our Baltic and mainly the Polish neighbors. But they wanted to stop the Swedish fisheries, which was, when it comes to the real fisheries, was not that great, so to say. Even though there might be some level of overfishing, but nothing in the region of our neighboring country. So in the Swedish arena, so to say, it has been a very, very politicized area, and that's why it is now very interesting, because I'm rather negative to the common fisheries policy, but this one is one of the areas where actually the common fisheries policy of EU has been, there is a kind of success story, because they used all their instruments, all their way of getting the newly then Baltic countries and Poland in to follow the management, because there was a management plan introduced in I don't know, it was mid 2005 or 6 or 7, and we actually reached a level where we can say now that we have a so to say biological safe level, which means that the stock level is okay and the fish mortality is okay, which means we can then shift focus to something else, and this one of the reasons for this is that the EU used all the machinery to try to enforce and got all the different fisheries to comply. But when it comes to the common fisheries policy, there is a kind of conflict in the management. And if you go back some years, I think 2008, there was a analysis made of the common fisheries policy where they were criticizing themselves. Even it was a document actually presented by the Commission, where they were very, very, very well. For once, they got some kind of self-criticism, and actually, I had a lecture in India in those days, and I said I presented how it works and so on. I even presented the success story of Baltic cod. But say whatever you do, it was a regional conference, and said whatever you do, don't try this at home, because it's nothing. But there's a process, and there is now a decision of the new policy, which I see as a kind of door opener for something new. So there is a process towards something that could be something positive, and that we have to make best use of. we have the issue of regionalization. I mean, the problem with the EU has been too much of micromanagement, one size fits all, and there's been a lot of, so to say, rules that has that are been implemented and that is totally irrelevant, and which then undermined the confidence among the fishermen. I often heard that there's something they decided in Brussels, and that is a kind of excuse. But I mean, it's to comply with it is the reality of the fishermen for the fishermen, and of course this is very very negative, and the distance between the decision taken in Brussels and the fishermen, the reality of the fishermen, is huge. I mean, it's too far. But regionalization, stakeholder involvement, we stop overfishing by introducing this card that's been discussing it before, and a kind of more long-term perspective and planning, instead of having this yearly quota haggling in the end of the year. So there is a tendency towards a fresh start of something new. And hopefully then the industry comes into the picture in a better way. If the stock is at a certain level, we could say now that we're from sustainability point of view, it's okay. Then we should focus and move over to another perspective, because what kind of regulation should we then have? Well, mainly it should be a kind of regulation more focused on what is the product and how should the product be for the market. I mean, you don't fish. I mean, we have been discussing with our fishermen is that we are fishing something that will be a fillet. So we say we should have the perspective of fishing fillets instead, rather than fishing a cod. Because if you got the signals from what is the preference of a certain size of fillets, it will have an implication, of course, directly on what are you fishing, what kind of size. We have the size of 38 minimum landing size. They're talking now and about lower that to 35. But the market signal is deadly clear. It's 40, 41, 42. There is a starting point for getting a good fillet. So that's a reality where you have, and then also, I mean, you can involve a lot of different aspects like quality so it's and the issue of getting the fisherman to understand that he is the first part of a supply chain, which means then we would have tried to develop some kind of, so to say, precision in the way we're fishing, which means that this puts then gear development into a new perspective, where we could have preferences and incentive for the markets influence the way we are using what type of method and how we're fishing and when we're fishing. As I said, the cod fishery has been so to say a lack of confidence among the fishermen from the public side, so to say, which means that there is now what we have to do is try to win back the consumer confidence in order to supply the fish for the Swedish, and we focus then on the Swedish consumers. We want to get them back eating cod. Cod has been more or less banned among the Swedish consumer by NGOs and so on. We have to develop a branding, which means that what we're doing and how we are acting, it means much more, and it is a part of how we are perceived from the public, from the consumer. And we have to use an instrument of eco-labeling, which means that a kind of third-party guarantees saying that this is okay. We need that in order to win the confidence of the consumer. We are we are then shifting focused. So I mean, we need to have the industry more into the fishery management, and we have to shift focus on from how to limit the fisheries, rather than how to fish in the best way, to how it should best be conducted. What we have done with our producer organization, we have started on a cooperation with the scientists, saying that let's try to agree with the scientists. We actually have a common project. We applied for funds, and we got almost 4 million Swedish kroner, where we are together with science trying to develop a kind of harvesting strategy for how we like to harvest the fish in the best way, in order to supply the best fish for the consumer and also guarantee a kind of sustainability. One area which we think is very important is data collection. We like to collect more data. We need, because in order to improve, it's not enough with the information we get in the logbooks. There's so much more information collected by the fishermen, or what the fishermen have in their mind and what's possible to record, and to get that into the work of the scientists, in order then to have a kind of common understanding of how the situation is and what is action to be taken. So by doing so, I mean, we could get a kind of more relevant management, and then from there a better legitimacy, and so, of course then compliance. What's interesting is that the fisherman lives in, because I mean, you know, there is a kind of catchword now. Everyone is talking about ecosystem. Of course, we should think about ecosystem, but actually, the fisherman is living in an ecosystem reality every day. One of the problems is he doesn't know it. He experienced different type of situations, and I hear among the fishermen that discussing different aspects of. We have the problem of, for instance, the cod in the Baltic. It's not somewhat skinny for certain periods, and what the reason behind that, and so on. They're talking about what the cod eat and so on. Of course, it's focused very much on the target species, but they include so many other aspects. And so what we say that let's record this and use it. And of course we are and have a kind of structure and record this in a way that we're able to use it for future management. Of course, there are white gaps, like when it comes to a more holistic point of view of ecosystem, because the fishermen might not care so much about the seals and birds or things like that, but still, I mean, they cover a lot of aspects, much more than this target species itself. So we could use this information in a much better way. We have been discussing here about gears, focus very much about the rules, regulations. Or what we should do is rather to focus on the end results, because what you get in the cod end after each haul is a result. And regardless of what type of gear size and so on, I mean, we sometimes focus too much of the regulating rather than focus on the final results. and then from there on start to find the different, what kind of different incentive could we use to influence using the best, or to change the results, let's say. We have discussed and say that, of course, I think most likely there will be need some kind of minimum standard, but let the fishermen be involved in deciding that. We have a number of challenges. We have, there are technical regulations in force, although if, for instance, we have in the Baltic, some are very counterproductive. For instance, there are regulations of the number of days at sea. And as someone said here, I mean, if you improve selectivity, if you select more, which means that you are spending more time on catching the same amount of fish than if you don't select. And this is proved by the scientists. They have been, but still then the EU regulations say that, oh, catch your quotas because you have just a certain number of allocated days. So that's, I mean, of course, that is contradicting. We are trying to pursue the Commission to, so to say, abolish the rules of days at sea, because it's completely irrelevant. We can't use it. There's a new control regulation that's actually starting today in Sweden, and I shouldn't talk so much about that because I think then my blood pressure will increase. I used to say that after 30 years in the administration, I've never come across anything that is more irrelevant than the new control regulations. It's a mishmash of, and it was something they rushed into because the Commission was criticized. Hopefully there will be a kind of open the door for some kind of well, changes. Traceability. Well, I think that we should use traceability as an instrument for getting the fishermen to be more transparent in relation to the consumer, because very often the consumer they would prefer to buy something from someone they could see a face of and who they know and who they can rely on. We have the multi-species, and as I mentioned, the fisherman will be definitely a good instrument to collect more data and to work in a much broader perspective with a multi-species perspective, so to say, in an ecosystem approach. Discard ban. Yes, we can. Well, I had this presentation in a part of it in Brussels, on the day where we had a famous president from United States landing in Stockholm, and I couldn't help but quoting him, saying, "Yes, we can," because most of our fishermen, they like to have the ban when it comes to the Baltic, because it's not that difficult, because it's one species. It's possible, it's feasible. And what's important, it shifts the paradigm in a way, because then we land everything. Then there's a focus in on what to do with what we land. And that will then have implications on the minimum landing size and things like that. And of course, if you have a certain quota allocated, of course you like to get the best revenue out of it, which means that there will be a very good driving force, an incentive for you to select or use better selectivities. Well, we have said we have the requirement. We see that first, of course, there is a kind of approach now where they say from the Commission saying that the producer organization will be the key partners and in being responsible for the gear development. What we have agreed with our Institute of Marine Research in Sweden is that we will do the work and they will do the evaluation. We like to have, of course, a very steep selection curve, as we have been seen here before. And of course, simple. We like to minimize the catches under minimum landing size. And also, what we heard before here, we like to have a more efficient catches, which means that we would like to use less fuel for catching the same amount, more efficient trawls, which normally is, of course, minimizing the energy use, and normally that is in some way or another attached to the bottom contacts, because the more bottom contacts, the more it costs. For the fishermen, it's back to the daily reality of cost benefit. What do I get out of it? And and that's the cost benefit is what's behind the balance of incentives. You allocated a certain quota. You like to have as much out of it as possible when it comes to the value. We have, for instance, we have to try now for the smallest size, where you have the 38 centimeters landing size. The size is it's called number 5, and we have to divide that in somewhere. We have a kind of breaking point saying that maybe you should have, if now the lower the landing size, minimum landing size to 35, they will have to shift and divide it into two different categories, 5 or 6, in order to maybe have. I'm soon ready. So that you get the best price shifts in maybe from 40 centimeter and up, where the market is ready to pay more. As I said here before, the fewer larger fish cost more, and improved selectivity, as I also said, I mean, before, it costs more days, more efficient, more effort. So this is a kind of possible approach where the industry should be behind and should be the driving force for such a development, together with scientists, together with the markets. Thank you. Yeah.
What kind of scientists are you working with?
We're working with the Institute of Marine Research because that's the guys who are behind the work in the ICS. So you have to carefully select the guys we're working with, because actually, I mean, it's the one who have influence in the quota system and things like that, and also the management.
You said something about eco-labeling and that was the way to go. Isn't that danger of giving too much power to the environmental NGOs through that way? Are we sure that we're gaining something out of it? I've seen research that say that maybe 5% of consumers let eco-labels have effect on their buying decisions, while the rest of them just choose with their products.
To put it this way, the markets. I was working quite a lot with with eco-label issues 10 years ago. And reality is that like this. It's in the northern part of Europe, the eco-labeling for some countries like Sweden, Germany is quite important as well. Eco-labeling products, it's account for between 10 and 15, 20% of the markets. And it was when, for instance, MSC come, because MSC in those days is not the same as MSC in today, because it's quite different. It's very strange if there is not a eco-label alternative in one way. But then again, apparently, I mean, with the negative perception of fisheries as such, with unregulated fisheries, we have a lack of good branding, so to say. We need to build back, and I think we need eco-labeling. It's a kind of shortcut in order to get there. Otherwise, we would have to do our own homework in order to really influence the consumer and to gain their confidence. And from let's say that, I mean, we managed to get all our stocks into better shape. Within 10, 15, 20 years, we won't need decollect, but today we need it. Because there is a lack, at least in the northern part of Europe, there is a lack of confidence. And definitely in Sweden, we need it. Because anyone could say anything about fisheries. As soon as they talk about fisheries, they're talking about overfishing. They use all this type of words that are very negative. And no one reacts. I heard a scientist even saying that there is not a bottom, 1.5 years ago, there's not a bottom in the Baltic that has not been trawled. And it's bullshit. We can, from the Board of Fisheries, could prove it because we have the WMS data. But anyone can say anything, and we are really, so to say, we are from the fishing industry. We have to get back, but we don't have that power.
Thank you very much for your last words. They are very valuable. We should always think over. I have one question, one remark. You said that the consumers didn't want to fish less than, say, 4.2 cents a week. I don't think when you get such a remark from consumers that you ask all the consumers. I've spoken to Espersen, the company who are buying most of the cod in the Baltic. And they will have absolutely no problem in taking in size 5 cod and sell them and make money on it.
No, but
it's not the prime product they will produce out of that. That's for sure. But I just want to say this because we do have to change our minds, all of us, when we go to the discard ban and take all the fish we get up in. Because we then have to look at the fish and say, where can I get profit out of that? Where can I sell it? What can I make it into? So what I'm complaining is that you are, like so many others, also promoting only to catch big fish.
No. Because what we've been saying is that we should target.
Yeah.
We should target, which means our gear should be developed in order to target the from 40 up, but we take the rest.
Not touch it. Yeah.
And we use it. Yeah. So that's something that because and also I say that the production normally when you make fillets, they say it's very simple. 40. Even Espresso said we like the 40 from 40 and up. Yeah. Because then it's a pure fillet. Below it goes to McDonald's as fish burgers.
Yeah.
Because it's a different market, which means also different price.
Yeah.
They can make use of it, but it's not profitable for the fishermen. And then that's why I think there will be a kind of breaking point where you say that below let's say 40, you will get 5, 6, 7, 8 kroner, and above you will get 13, 14, 15.
Yeah.
And that's a very good incentive for the fishermen to go for a better selection.
Or big volume of small fish.
His choice, with a limited quota. Yeah.